This left half was shot in RAW. This right half was not. Can you tell the difference?
If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Eric. I'm a Boston-based cinematographer, and I'm here to get nerdy about RAW. I don't seem to be quite as excited about RAW as many other C70 owners. Personally, I love the 10-bit image out of the camera. The dynamic range is out of this world, the colors are beautiful. The only area of the image that I would say does have some serious room for improvement would be in the detail. It's not nearly as sharp as any modern Sony camera, or even Canon's own EOS R5 or R5C. So I would be excited about RAW if it could give us that. But that's just what I was hoping for. That's not necessarily why you would shoot RAW. I'll talk about some specific workflows where RAW would probably really come in handy later in the video. There are already some great videos on YouTube about under and overexposing with the new RAW firmware. Specifically, Griffin Conway put out a great video. I would recommend checking that out. But the short of it is that, yeah, if you shoot RAW and you totally mess up your exposure, you're gonna have a easier time recovering those shadows or highlights. But besides exposure adjustments, the other thing you're allowed to change with RAW footage is the color temperature. So let's light me with a daylight source fixture and set the camera to 3200 Kelvin. Inside DaVinci, you can see the xf-avc footage looks like this. I will use the white balance color picker to have DaVinci change the white balance for me, and we get this. Not terrible. Now let's take the RAW footage, go into the RAW controls, and type in our desired white balance. No surprise here, RAW will always be better at this type of thing because it's 12-bit instead of 10-bit, so you just have more colors to work with. Of course, mistakes happen, but personally, I don't find myself shooting with the completely wrong white balance too often. So although this is kind of fun to test out, it doesn't practically come into play for me very often and wouldn't be a reason to shoot RAW. If you're wondering why I'm comparing xf-avc to RAW instead of xf-avc, it's because, well, check out this video up here. I'll explain it all in that. Basically, I just think that for me and the types of projects I shoot, xf-avc usually makes slightly more sense. Not always, but usually. So that's why it's what I was personally most interested to see compared to RAW. So besides egregious exposure or white balance mistakes in the field that you need to correct in post, why else would you shoot RAW and fill up those cards and hard drives at a exponentially faster rate? I think the answer to that is twofold: color grading and VFX. When pushing an image in a grade or trying to pull a key in a composite, the more colors you have to work with, the easier of a time you will have, and most likely the better result you'll end up with. So to see this in action, I gaff taped up a quick green screen and put myself in front of it. I shot this at 8-bit, 10-bit, and 12-bit RAW, and used key light to remove the green. And they all work. I mean, this wasn't a nicely lit or ironed green screen, so it's kind of a bad test intentionally to hopefully bring out the flaws in the clips with less color depth. Gradually, the key does get cleaner, 8 to 10 to 12. Specifically, if you look in the bottom left corner, you don't really even have to be zoomed in to see it in 8-bit. However, these days, I don't find myself keying a lot. What I do find myself doing fairly frequently is rotoscoping. So let's whip out the roto brush and delete my body. This is 8-bit footage, and I am a floating head. This is 10-bit footage, and I am a floating head. This is RAW footage, and I am a floating head. Here I noticed even less of a difference than the green screen. All three worked pretty well when putting them on the clean plate of the room behind me. I had to put them all on a white background to really see any issue with the roto, and the issues were kind of consistent from 8 to 10 to 12-bit. It's all in the bottom of the neck and my left ear, but that's in all three. The roto brush didn't really seem to care if it was RAW or 8-bit or 10-bit. So now let's jump into DaVinci and do some qualifying tests. I'm just going to test 10-bit and 12-bit here. If you're interested in 8-bit versus 10-bit qualifying in DaVinci, check out the card that I'll link up there. I've already gone into that in the past. And similar story here. I don't really notice a difference. I spent about the same amount of time qualifying each, and neither got there quicker and neither seemed really more precise. So then just for fun, I also did it on my face. My beard was slightly more included in the RAW than in the 10-bit, but you know, it was basically the same as well. Color me unimpressed. That wasn't a pun, but it is one. Don't get me wrong here though, I'm not saying that 10-bit is just as good as 12-bit, don't use it. I'm just honestly doing tests, trying to figure out how much better the 12-bit is in practical scenarios, and so far it's just not that different. If I got hired tomorrow to do a green screen shoot You better believe I'd be shooting RAW, because it would just be kind of dumb not to if you can capture more colors. But if I was the one editing it, I would also go into it knowing that there isn't really going to be a huge difference. So of course, the elephant in the room is the file sizes. If you were already shooting xf-avc all-I, then it's probably a no-brainer to jump to RAW because it's almost the same data rate. If you're shooting HEVC like me, you're going from 135 megabits a second, I believe, to between 200 and 300 for the smaller RAW, and then like 400 or 500 for the larger RAW. But these files might not just be tough on your wallet when it comes to hard drives, they might also be tough on your computer. I have the M1 Pro, MacBook Pro. I'm going to play back these 2 clips that are the same exact length. Play. There was a slight delay on that play. It was not instantaneous, and it's done. Over the course of 8 seconds, we dropped 4 frames. Now let's play RAW. Didn't start for a few seconds. It's playing, it's not stalling, but it's just very choppy. And we dropped 174 frames. It's way, way, way more taxing to edit RAW, and that's just with one conversion applied. There's no creative grades or grain or noise reduction or graphics, it's just one piece of 4K footage with a LUT. Let's bring it back to the beginning of this video though, where I said that the thing I cared about was not under or overexposure or white balance adjustments or even VFX, even though I do them occasionally. I wanted a crispier image. Based off my testing, it's very, very subtle, but I do think I can see the difference. However, I do have to literally be looking at them one after another or side by side, and then I think I can tell, but there could also be some placebo effect going on there. And I think it does, maybe even more so than the sharpness or detail, lead to a more rich image from a color perspective because of the 12-bit. And if you look at any 2 shots and put your eye on the vector scope, the saturation in the vector scope will expand if you're looking at the RAW clip compared to the 10-bit clip. However, after YouTube compression, which is where all of the projects that I care most about end up living, can you tell? I'll put up 2 side by side right here. Let me know in the comments what you think. Left or right? Which do you think is RAW?